Y'all want some content?
Alright, this is the video, folks. You thought the Olympia video, or the prediction video, was rustling feathers? No, friends. This is gonna do it. And what makes it worse is that I don't have a concrete answer for it. All I really have is talking points. So, let's take a look at it. So, let's just get the main idea out of the way then. Should we copy the past? Copy what past? Character design. Specifically in platform fighters. The Foxes, the Marths, the Wolves, the Marios, etc. Should we keep taking influence from these designs? Or should we look to the future and to try to make something way different in the series? Let's look at all the points then. The good, the bad, the long, the short. Whatever it is. So the conversation to be more liberal with the design is very interesting because it's to break away from the tropes we've come to know into something different. There's definitely some basis to the characters feeling more unique when the design isn't taken from the popular baseline. Let's look at like Wei Shan, right? Wei Shan really comes to mind for something like this. This character clearly doesn't fit the bill of a Marth clone. Almost none of the animations are the same. He's taller, and he has a gimmick. When people think of Wei Shan from Rushdown Revolt, that's him. He's not a Marth of this game, he's Wei Shan. He has an identity, and a lot of players play him even more than the actual Marth clone that is in the game, you know? So much so, he is probably known by the majority of people outside of Rushdown Revolt that like don't know anything about the game to be the main character of the game for the most part. The devs would like to think otherwise, but listen, if anyone talks about Rushdown Revolt, they're probably talking about Wei Shan, to be fair. So the second point, it's boring. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but just in case, I can see why seeing the fourth Fox clone in a platform fighter be used is boring. Hell, the reason why Zetaburn doesn't really feel like this is because he's copied from Wolf, which has been less taken over the years in comparison to Marth or Fox. So there's that.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better.
There's the idea that you can do something better than the original, and going against it could lead to something like that. Like maybe you don't want to have a character use a shine or a blaster or a sex kick, and you want to move something that's better than these sort of concepts or different. Maybe you need the character to lean into like a rushdown playstyle, so the shine isn't really, you don't really want it to be used as a combo tool, but you want it to be like a kill move. Say like a Wolverine super, you know, like something like that would be used for a shine move if you really wanted to, you know, if you wanted to give a character that sort of tool. Or maybe you just repurpose it to just be like a Wolverine super regardless and just ditch the shine move. Like, you don't want a blaster, you don't want even a projectile, you want like a fanged move or like claws with a little bit of range more than usual. Maybe like at that point a sex kick looks wrong and doesn't really show the ferociousness of this sort of character that you're making. So something like Wolverine's poses is much more wanted. So that's only an example, but what I'm saying is that sometimes you want a character to be expressed in a sort of way, and going in the past isn't necessarily going to bring what you want into that character. So breaking free from it and trying to make your own thing is, you know, people really like the idea. However, there's kind of the other side to it.
You mean the son of a shepherd? Is that the three-shoe beating?
A more conservative side of this argument. There's probably a spectrum of this belief throughout like people's opinions, but let's see the potential arguments for this sort of thing. So The sort of comfort people can get without putting in too much time, like other characters, could be like some reason to keep them as is or keep them referencing the old moves. Like, wanting to hop on and play a character that's familiar isn't really evil, but it is different. Hell, maybe it's good for newer players too to have something so familiar and get a good grasp of fundamentals that way. Like, for as much shit as I give Ryu, there's kind of like a reason that he kind of exists as a character and people play him, is because, you know, even though there's a few changes to him every single other game, he's still Ryu and you'll still play him either way. So there's definitely a certain subset of people that wouldn't want this sort of thing, like, to be too different of characters for the ones that they've already done. However, this can be also said for the opposite, because that's a reoccurring character, and most of the time for platform fighters, you're not doing a reoccurring character, you're doing a character that is different. So there's that. When a character already plays like someone you're used to, it's very easy to get a feel and even main a character from there. You know what you like, and that's a sort of defense, I guess. The second point. Entirely new characters aren't needed too often if you simply can make a few changes to make them your own. So let's look at this character from Stardust Valkyrie, for example. Almost every move is clearly from Fox, except her grabs and her up B. But it honestly could be up to the opinion to say that she's too close to Fox, because of the game's engine and mechanics are way different. Almost every move is clearly from Fox, except her grabs and up B. And there's definitely different opinions that you can have, but the opinion we'll focus on is that even though that she has a lot of moves close to Fox, the game's engine and mechanics make up for it. It basically makes them a different tool entirely. So maybe we should keep talking influence, because the nature of a different game could make it different just based on that. But again, the argument can turn on its head when it comes to like something like Icons, for example, where maybe it just had too many of them. Icons was a decent game, I think. The problem is it didn't really have enough spice in order to make it its own platform fighter. The engine was okay, all the character designs were decent, it's just that it felt bland and that sort of thing. It didn't really have an identity. So maybe that, you would say, is the reason why, rather than like the characters are too similar, when maybe simply having another mechanic could have just made them good on its own. But we don't really know what the past and present will deal with, so there's that. Of course, there are people more in the middle with views, but I see a lot of the same arguments, and it's very hard to like decipher like what is and what isn't. Most of it is opinionated rather than like right or wrong. Like, I don't really believe that someone is wrong in their opinions about it, but I do think that there's arguments on both sides of when it comes to actually dealing with this sort of thing. So here we come to the last part. What do we think about about either keep on doing the same thing or actually innovating? This is just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I would rather your characters be very different than what is usually. If you're going to make a character that is like very similar to another one, even from a different series, I would rather you have a different mechanic or a gimmick that could make it like entirely different on its own, rather than just like Ryu clone 72, you know? But if we could avoid that, I would say make your entirely different character. And if you want, and you are trying to take influence, I would rather you take influence from other like fighting game series, you know, Marvel vs. Capcom, Guilty Gear, you know, these sorts of things that you know not a lot of people really are looking towards when they make a platform fighter. Most platform fighters, Stardust Valkyrie and other stuff like that, they're usually taking influence a lot from these old Smash games, and you know, cool, but it doesn't really do a lot if there's really nothing there to him compared to like your other good characters. So, final thing, I would rather what happened is this. If you're going to make a character, trying to make it as unique as possible. And if you are going to make influence of the old cast of characters in Smash Ultimate, give it a gimmick. Give it a gimmick, give it something, give a different property, do something different. Because if it's too similar, then all it's going to make me feel is that I should be playing Smash instead of your game.